Good morning, viewers. My name is Mrs. Olakomi Olaiton, HOS of Blooming Montessori School. This is East Niger Up, and today we are inviting Mrs. Oshisoya Aishat, a parent lead at East Neurocare. Sit back and enjoy the program. Thank you. You're welcome, Mrs. Oshisoya.
Thank you, Sulaika, for having me.
All right. You're welcome to the program. Ma, we just wanted to enlighten us on autism generally.
Okay, so autism is a neurological disorder, although we do not like to call it a disorder. It is an impairment of it affects the neurons in the brain. So for children or adults that have autism, they do not develop the way that children that are considered normal develop. So we also prefer to call them neurodivergent, and children that are considered normal to be neurotypical. So they are those that their brain functions in the typical way, and people that have autism, their brain is divergent. We tell them A and their brain is doing C, right? So these children, the things that you will usually not have to tell a normal child. You have to prompt them. You have to teach them. Some of them don't understand simple things like sarcasm. They take things very literally. So you tell a child that someone kicked the bucket, and they assume that the person actually kicked the bucket. But you tell a neurotypical child that someone kicked the bucket, and they automatically understands that the person dies, right? So autism is not something that people just outgrow or people get to cure. It is something that people live with. It is a real thing. It's something that we need to assist them to live with, because the world is full of a lot of different people.
That brings me to the second question. Like, does can can we have an autism adult
Yes, we do. We have.
without being an autism as a child?
The thing is, most autistic adults were children with autism that never knew they had autism. So their parents did not understand why they were behaving a certain way, and their parents did not know how to help them, and so they adapted to their own life.
And
They grew up because they have to function in this normal world, right? And so they are just living as adults with autism without any particular support. Some of them will go on to read about it. For example, we have Miss Victoria Fakia.
Fakia.
She's one of our guests.
okay.
She's a journalist. She works in Tech Point, I think, or Tech Cabal, one of those two. But she's autistic, right? The thing is, she reads. She knows that there is a condition as autism, and she knows how to help herself now. But because autism is on two spectrums, we have the high spectrum and the low spectrum. People like Mrs. Victoria and some other people that you will not physically see that they have autism, they're on the high spectrum. So they can function on their own, they can adapt, they can learn. But people on the low spectrum, they need constant assistance. You know, you need to set a clear pattern for them, a routine, and they will react to things like light, color, sound more than people on the high spectrum that you will not even notice it when you see them. Those people on the high spectrum, they also have things that they deal with. For example, one of the boys here, Abdul Fattah, he doesn't look autistic, but he cannot function in a very huge crowd. He will usually play on his own. There can be 20 children here, and he will just walk away to go and look for something because he cannot deal with the crowd. There are others that when they are going out, they always need to have head, headphones or
Headphones on.
a headset or something to minimize the sound, because for them too much sound is what they react to. But they have known themselves, known that they are on the high spectrum and they can function in this world without too much support.
You said something like doesn't really show on them. Does um autism show on them like a Down syndrome?
Yes, for some people it does, some
Or
people it does, but for others it doesn't.
like how do we get to know? Because most times when you see an autistic child and adult, you they look they look like
Normal,
neurotypical, and
yeah,
but compared to Down syndrome, it's
mm-hmm,
easy to
to tell.
differentiate. Yeah.
Yes. People that have autism, sometimes you can see it in the shape of their faces. You can
Oh,
see it in their
wow.
eyes also sometimes. And you can see it in their attitudes, their aversion towards light and sound. So you can tell that, oh, this child is autistic and they are reacting to maybe the extra colorful room they are in, too much bright
Mm-hmm.
light, or a thumping sound that that
Okay.
they
Ding
can hear
dong.
it but you cannot hear it, and so you see they keep
Repeat
hitting their
everything.
ears and you see that they are uncomfortable, and at that point they will start to steam. They will
Mm,
make sounds.
mm,
Those sounds are to help them cope.
mm,
Sometimes it could be a rhyme that they will just keep
repeating.
repeating to help them cope at that time. So maybe they fidget, maybe they need something to hold on to at that point. They will know that, okay, this child is autistic and they're trying to adapt to that situation at the time.
Okay. One more thing. Somebody said something about. I think that's the way you could just figure it out. Like, do they live in their own dimension? Like, getting to read a lot of things about them. That means there's another dimension. Are they in their own dimension? So what can you
Yeah, we
say?
can put it that way. We can put it that way. The thing is, they don't understand
This that's
this
exactly what
world.
the person was saying. That it's like everything about them, they are in their own world,
World,
in their
yes.
own dimension. Is there? Can we? Like the child was like, can we? Can I go into that dimension? I can't explain that. I cannot. Like, he wants to know what they
Yeah,
know. He wants to see what
they
they
see, right?
see.
The
Like
thing
that.
is, for children that have autism, this world is strange, right? Because for them, they they pick up sound, they pick up a lot of information at once.
Mm,
So you and I are sitting here. We can hear that children are playing. We can hear that there's generator somewhere, but we don't know where that sound is coming from.
mhm.
Children that have autism, they can also hear the little sounds around that
Around.
we cannot hear. So, for example, when you are calling a child with autism and they don't answer you immediately, it's not like they don't want to answer you. It's just that there's too many things going on. So they have to look for a way to cope. And then they just ignore everything. And they'll just maybe pick that one thing that is more interesting to them, which is maybe playing or running around or shouting. At that point, that is where they are. So it seems almost as if they are not with us,
Mm,
but really they have to find a way to cope. So they create their own space in their head, right? Because there they can, we now we can filter all the sounds,
yeah.
but them it's like they are playing with all the sounds at
Wow.
once. And sometimes it's painful for them because it's too many sounds
Sound.
coming one person's way. I mean, if I were to give you a book now to read, and then your boys are playing around, your husband is maybe playing music inside, and everybody is doing everything
Mm.
at once. You will
Get
not be
to.
able to, you will be overwhelmed. But them too, they are overwhelmed, but they don't know how to cope, so they just stay where it seems more
Mhm.
comfortable. And then we
Yeah.
think that they are in their own world, but that's how they cope.
Does that affect what you just said? Does that affect their health? Like having headache, giving them stress, it's like stress, everything
Yes.
coming to them. Does that affect them health wise?
Not really. I think I'm a religious person, right?
Okay.
I think that God has created you a certain way. He knew why He gave you that ability or disability. My son has autism. The only time I think that it is a problem is when he's frustrated because he's unable to pass an information
Mission.
or get something that he wants to do done. But I don't see that it gives him headaches, or the only thing is people that have autism, they like their things to be a certain way.
Way.
So if
Structure.
you, yes, they like structure, they like familiarity. So if a child with autism that also has maybe OCD, for example, my son has a level of OCD. He
OCD.
likes things to be
Order.
proper. He likes things to be
To be in
orderly.
order.
So if he's arranging A to Z, those letters must be in a perfect line
Line.
or a perfect curve. And if you take one letter from it, that is when you see
Get
his
angry.
anger. But I don't see that it gives him any form of headache or sickness. No. Unfortunately, some children that have autism have sensory taste issues.
Mm.
So my son, for example, is 4. He's going to be 5 in December, and he still picks things from the floor. He still,
Mouth.
yes, still put things in his mouth, and that could lead to infection
Infection and
and
all the things.
all that. But I don't see that it causes that autism itself causes them any health issues.
Because I picked that from Victoria Pakea's discussion some time ago that when she chose to work and she didn't go along with her head or earphone before she gets to work or home, she would either be having body pains, or headache, and because everything coming in too many, she will
Yes,
be down with stress
yes.
and things like that.
Yes.
That was
I don't think that is a medical thing. I think it's just her inability to cope with
hope.
so much noise at once. And usually, let's not lie, if you go to a party, let's be frank, me, for example, I don't like too much parties. If I go to a party and the music is so loud and I'm there for 5 hours, by the time I get
Wow.
home, my head will be banging. So imagine that for someone that now has autism,
Autism.
that's spending so much time among so many different people.
Mm.
She has to wake up in the morning, first of all, get ready and go to work. Now going to work, she has to come into contact with all these different faces, different people,
Wow.
different sounds. For us, we're able to deal. For her, she's unable to deal
Mm.
because of her autism. So she needs that support of her headphone. But it's not necessarily a health issue. It's just the
Okay.
fact that she's reacting to the environment, the
Mm.
way even someone that is normal reacts to really loud music sometimes. Like if you stay in a really loud place for a long
Long
time,
time.
yeah. But for her, it's the fact that she's also autistic and so much sounds. It's just something that she just can't deal with.
So, is there any other way they can cope? Since they have to get used to the typical world, they have to get used to is that if they are not getting used to this typical thing. So, what is there any other way they can make their own world fun and continue like that
I think as much as we expect them to adapt, we should also do our best to adapt to
to
them
them? So, if they
because
are not, if we don't want them to adapt, now we are advocating for the world to accept them the way they are now.
mhm,
So if we don't, we want to leave them in their own world and we want to be in our own world. So let them have their way. So is there anything we can do to make it
I
so
think leaving them in their own way is not helping
in
them,
them? Mm.
right? Because they still have to live in this world.
Okay.
Accepting them is the first step. Then making things easily accessible to them is another step. I
Okay.
think it is the way we are here, the government, the fact that people are still in denial. I
Mm.
heard a woman say one day that she knows that if she does not acknowledge what the Lord has not given her, then it will not be there. But her son is autistic. She
Mm.
just feels that not acknowledging it will take it away, which is impossible.
Possible.
Because if God gave you a child that is autistic, He had given you for a reason.
Mm.
Because He knows that you can handle it, right? So what I'm trying to say here is we need to be accepting of them, right? In order to be able to help them, we need to understand their own world, how their brain works, why their brain works that way. This kind of life we live here, in a better scenario, we would have people who have autism, even on the low spectrum, working in shops dedicated to helping them make a livelihood for themselves. Because they have to learn to operate machines, they have to learn to make sales and calculate this and do that and be customer care agents because we need them to live a normal life. Not normal, but a life that helps them be independent, make them feel good about themselves. Unfortunately, here we don't consider them as disabled people. Here, we just see them as nuisance.
Um,
Because I remember speaking to a man that works
wow.
directly with the government on NGOs. I remember that I spoke to him about doing something for children that have special needs. And his response to me is they don't put money there because those people will need a help for the rest of their lives. There will be no return on investment.
Wow.
But if it's training people that are blind or deaf, that is still better because those ones you can teach them and they can now adapt to living a normal life. Unfortunately, what the government does not realize is people that are neurodivergent are extremely smart
Smart and
and
talented. That's
talented.
right. Is it all of them that have this special? Because I think by research we had that the nature compensates them
Yeah,
with beautiful talents. Like Fatah, I know Fatah is loaded. All you need to do is let him see, let him hear. Once Fatah can hear and he can see, it's good to go. So does it? Do we have all of them like that?
I
Are
think
they? Are there? Do we have some that are just there? No matter what you put into them, they won't give anything back.
it's not as much about the children as it is about the teacher. I read a
Okay,
quote once that said there are no bad children, only bad teachers.
teacher. Yeah.
If you spend your time on a child, there must be a way that that child,
I reach out to them.
yes, and that child consumes information. Right? If the child does not consume information, the typical sit down blackboard pencil, right?
Pencil.
Then the child must have another way of
Way.
learning. You mentioned Abdul, right? Abdul is not the kind of child that you just leave him with the board and give him a pencil or whatever and he will be looking at you. But if it is something that you interact with him, you engage him while you are teaching him, let him practice it as you are teaching him, you will get it 100%. All these people have their different ways of learning. If the teacher was to invest time into understanding their learning process and then helping them, they will do wonderfully. I think nature compensates for the things that we don't have. It's the same thing with blind people. They have heightened senses.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with deaf people. They have heightened senses. Now, this neurodivergent, the world expects them to think like this, but they think like
Exactly.
this, and they think like that, and they're still able to do things while they're thinking that
Better.
way. Sometimes even better than children who just think in a straightforward manner.
Thank you, Mrs. Soya.
Thank you very
It was
much.
nice
Thank
having
you.
you on the program.
Thank you.
Oh, wow, it's been awesome on today's Is Ninja Up with our parent lead, Mrs. Oshisoya. We've had so much and a lot from her, being a parent lead in Is Neurocare and also a parent with an autistic child. So we need to be kind to them. We need to show love to them. They are part of us. So we need to let them let them know that they can be with us and among us. And I read something about Houston. Is a special man, and this can only be achieved by people that love him, expose him to so many things that will help him. So please, let's take them in and let's make them feel loved so that we can have better autistic children around us. They can grow up to be a better autistic adult. Thank you.